Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by the 2024 Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X is Toyota's brand new all-electric SUV designed to go the distance for you and your family. The BZ4X is packed with Toyota's coolest tech, but it still has that trusty SUV feel you know and love. And even though it's electric, it's capable of effortlessly conquering any terrain. Whether it's rain, snow, mud, or your friend's questionable post-game recaps, the BZ4X will get you through it all. And of course, we're coming to you from the iconic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. Looking for your next meeting space? Contact the Wall Center for all your event needs at sales@wallcenter.com. Folks, it's the Vancouver Canucks 2024 offseason mega preview episode. I like saying mega preview. Remember we did a mega preview for round 2 of the playoffs and round 1.
I love it. It's a great concept. Also, since the end of the season, we've touched on some offseason topics, but this is where we really want to dive deep into their cap situation, their roster needs, and set the table for some of the key decisions that they're going to have to make this summer.
And people are going to like this. We were planning this show for a whole hour. You and I sat together and we planned an entire show.
This might be the most prep we've ever done for a show.
I think it is. Like, I don't think we, like, even dating back to when Faber and I did the show, we did even less. Well, Faber did some, he likes to say he did prep, but he didn't really do prep. I can't think of a show we did more prep for. Maybe the, actually, no. This is it. This has to be it.
Maybe you know what it was?
Yeah.
It would have been grading all the Patrick Alvin trades. We did.
That took us a while. Yeah. Producer Grady Sass. Forgot to mention him.
Hello.
With his contribution to the show, which is good. Yeah, we've got a lot. We've got a lot to get to today. Quickly, I want to just shout out. We should have done this, and I think we did do some of it. Thank all of our sponsors, and of course, thank you to all of our sponsors. But Toyota, we're done with them as of Friday. So shout out to Toyota, who's been our presenting sponsor for a while now. Might come back with them next season, but just as we head into the off season, less shows, all that sort of stuff. Toyota is no longer going to be a sponsor, and I just want to say thank you to Toyota because they were an awesome sponsor to have. I love talking about the BZ4X. I love talking about the electric episodes that we're going to have, and I think I'm still going to say that, but I probably won't do a BZ4X read at the top of every show anymore. But shout out to Toyota. As we head into this off-season preview, mega preview. Man, I almost said preview. And joining us for our off-season mega preview is going to be Jeff Patterson. Is Jeff ready, Grady? I don't know why. Yep. I can't see where people are anymore, but
he's at the bottom. Yes, he's ready.
Wonderful. Then let's get to him. Let's get to Jeff Patterson, who is brought to you by our friends over at Wendy's. Frozen pucks are awesome when they're in the back of the other guy's net, but that doesn't mean you'd want to eat one. Unless you're Chris Tanev. That's why Wendy's only ever uses fresh Canadian beef that's never seen the inside of a freezer in all of their burgers. Whether you order a Baconator, Dave Single, or even a JBC, you'll only ever find real fresh beef that's juicy and loaded with fresh toppings. So download the Wendy's app, check out the latest deals, and order a burger that's only job is being delicious. We'll bring in Jeff Patterson, whose only job today should have been recovering from his dental procedure, but we called him in. And he's doing our show, and we appreciate it. Jeff, how you feeling?
Surprisingly good. I spent 90 minutes this morning in a specialist chair. This wasn't just the dentist. This was like next level. My dentist sent me to the specialist to have some work done. It's done. I feel incredibly good, like way better than I thought I would. The dentist or the specialist warned me about the recovery procedure and the meds I should be taking. And I'm sitting here like 4 hours out of the chair and feel like $1 million. I don't know if I look like $1 million, but I feel like $1 million, feel way better than I had anticipated. So I don't know if that's setting me up for a big crash later in the day, but right here, right now for you guys, I am all good. And I am fired up about the mega preview.
Yes. I love it, Jeff. You're just built different. And hey, I was texting you about it too. When you said, yeah, I'll do the show if I feel well enough. I was like, okay, make sure your specialist knows I'm really counting on them here. We really, really want them to do a good job. So, hey, shout out to the dentist that helped our man, Jeff Patterson. Jeff, it is the mega preview, as you're obviously aware of. It's the mega preview. We're talking about cap space. We're talking about key UFAs that they have. The first question I'll ask you, because there's a lot of decisions for this team to make this offseason. The first question I'll ask you, Jeff, is you can only pick one, and all of these are at market value. Of the Canucks pending UFAs, who would you sign if you could only sign one at market value?
Yeah, as I look at the list here, and we're talking about unrestricted. I suppose I would try to keep the band together on the back end to some degree. I don't know what market value ultimately is going to be for Nikita Zadorov. He seemed to think it might be less than we all think it's going to be. At least that's what he told us at the exit meetings last week. But I just think, the role that he played, the fan following that he developed here, we know how much Rick Tocchet basically pleaded with management to get him a Vegas-style defense, and they went out and they did all of that, and he became a part of it. So he's probably the guy. But, again, at what price point, ultimately that is the factor that's going to determine whether, he's too rich for the Vancouver Canucks interests, or, if he decides that negotiations aren't going the way that he wants, and he knows that all it takes is one team out there to give him what he's looking for. So he may decide to play the market. But, here we are, late May, and I see the stories, and I saw the report from Rick Dhaliwal earlier today about, and I'm getting off topic a little bit here, but it comes back to what we're doing. This report that the Canucks and Dakota Joshua are far apart right now. Like, I guess we've entered into that portion of the offseason here. Again, it's late May. Like, I'm not too worried about that. I think this is all part of negotiation. And so I see that, stories are being written about it. I know we wrote about it at Canucks Army. I know that Daily Hive wrote a piece on it as well. To me, this feels like it's far too soon. And look, the report's the report, but I think people should sort of caution themselves on their reaction to it, that we're a month away still from unrestricted free agency. There is plenty of time to bridge some of these gaps. Not all of them are going to get bridged, but some of them will. And ultimately, this is negotiation that two sides, start to work their way closer to some sort of settlement at some point. But I'm not going to freak out too much about the reports that there is this hefty gulf between a player like Dakota Joshua and the Vancouver Canucks right now.
J-Pat, the Canucks, yes, have a lot of needs, a lot of roster spots to fill, but they also have an opportunity in the sense that they have a lot of cap space, right? They have the flexibility to go and make a splashy ad if they'd like to. When you examine the roster as a whole right now, what do you think the Canucks' biggest need is heading into the summer?
The easy answer, Harm, is goal-scoring wingers, and they definitely need some of those. But with 3 defensemen under contract, and one of them is Noah Juulsen, with all due respect to Noah and the way that he sort of rekindled his National Hockey League career, like, this defense is in a state of flux right now. And this is a coach that preached defense and systems and structure, and they tried to defend their way into the 3rd round of the Stanley Cup, and they came damn close. So it's easy to say they need more production and more pop up front in the lineup, because they do, but you're not getting very far without a legitimate National Hockey League defense. And look at the Edmonton Oilers right now and where they are and the issues that they're facing. It's not the top of their lineup. It's that sort of seedy underbelly that is rearing its ugly head yet again. And it shows the value of what the Canucks were able to put together with this defense group that they had. And they're not going to be able to bring everybody back, and I don't think you should be. It's not about just re-racking it, and trying again with the same group. It's about keeping as many pieces as you can that you want and making this team better. And so, to me, with Rick Tocchet and the way that he coaches, and Adam Foote still here as his chief lieutenant, and obviously there's an opening on his staff now, but even though Tocchet said, like, maybe I have to address some of the ways that I approach things, I still think he's going to be a systems and structure defense first coach. So I think it's about building out a defense that mirrors what they just had. Again, I don't think they're going to be able to duplicate it, but I do think it's about trying to bring back a lot of the pieces. And, if they have to replace some with others, it's about finding, at the fringes, trying to find some ways to actually upgrade and improve the back end of the hockey club.
Jeff, plenty of storylines came out of the exit availabilities last week. What stood out the most for you from Locker Cleanout Day?
I think the biggest single takeaway for me was Brock Besser there in person, smiling, and seemingly in great spirits. Like, we can get around to hockey-related things, but just on a human level, all that he had been through earlier in the week, I didn't know if, I didn't even know if he was what kind of medical care he was getting. I didn't know if he would be available to us at the year-end thing. And so to see him up there and speaking positively about his health in the short term, but the long-term prognosis, and that this isn't going to be any sort of issue for him moving forward, that was, I think, number one on my list. Beyond that, the free agents all said the right things. That they liked it here and they want to be back. But again, in a cap world, not everybody's going to be able to find what they're looking for. So, there weren't a ton of surprises. Obviously, Jeff Paterson and his disclosure about the knee. I guess the reaction from both Tocchet and Alvin seemingly downplaying what Patterson had offered. And I think Elias Patterson was trying to be honest and sort of take us into his world a little bit about what held him back, because obviously his play down the stretch and into the playoffs wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough on the contract that he's got. It certainly can't be the baseline for the contract that's going to kick in this offseason. So, I thought there was a little bit of vulnerability and honesty on his part, and then it felt like coach and manager kind of poured some cold water on it. And so I'm not totally sure where the truth lies, but, I don't think Elias Pettersson's making up the injury. I saw a lot of pushback that, hey, how come he was the only guy that tried to offer up any sort of injury? Other guys just sucked it up and, said, yeah, but I'm not willing to talk about it. I look, he's been here for parts of 6 seasons, and I still think Elias Pettersson is navigating his way through, how much of his world he wants to let us into. And I thought he was trying a little bit on that last day to provide a little bit of context for why things were the struggle they were. It doesn't explain to me, if it was the knee, why wasn't he shooting as much? Why wasn't there as much pop in his shot? I mean, he took one maintenance day the day before the Anaheim game in late March, but otherwise he was a regular contributor in practice or participant in practice. He played every game down the stretch. They didn't give him days off. They didn't sit him down and rest him up. The longer it went with his struggles, like even if they wanted him to play through it, that wasn't working. I still am not totally sure why the organization didn't try to sit him down for a week on that homestand where there was no travel. There was an opportunity there, I think, against some of the, Eastern opponents, that run of Buffalo and Montreal and Washington. They weren't conference games. They weren't divisional games. I don't know. To me, it kind of felt like there was an opportunity to rest him to see if that could have helped him heal and get him back closer to the player that we all know he can be. They elected to keep running him out there on a nightly basis. Whatever the case, what's done is done. He now has to go home in here in the offseason and sort it out and ultimately figure it out and come back and be the player that we know he can be, and that the Vancouver Canucks are banking on him being based on the contract that they committed to him.
The Canucks mutually parted ways with assistant coach Mike Yeo recently. When you consider how he ran the PK, how Lindholm and Bluger, two of their most frequently used penalty killing forwards, are pending free agents. Sidorov, Cole also used a lot on the PK. They're pending free agents. Do you think rebuilding the PK is perhaps one of the underrated storylines of this offseason now?
I do. And, it's funny because you can get off on a number of tangents here and look at the work that has to be done. If Elias Lindholm doesn't come back, and I'm not expecting that he will, because I just don't think this team can be 3 deep down the middle with centers that are making upwards of $8 million. I don't think that they've got that luxury. He's their only right-handed center. And, I don't know how you replace him, but if it's internally, if Pia Suter was to move to the middle, the way that he ultimately was signed, Nils Amon, if Bluger is back, like all those guys are left-handed centers, and it's taking us back to a point with Leighton Travis Green's time, Bruce Boudreau here, where that felt like a fundamental flaw. Like maybe it's a small thing, but you saw how much the Canucks leaned on a guy like Lindholm as the right shot center to take key draws. I mean, he's good in face-off, so that's a big part of why the coaches turned to him as well. But, that sort of goes hand in hand. So when I'm looking at wish lists for the Vancouver Canucks, it's not just penalty killers, but I do think that if you're going to round out a fully functional team that, is optimal for a coach, you're looking at guys that can give the coaching staff different looks in different sorts of situations. And I think a right shot center is important. It may not be at the top of a priority list, but I do think it's important to have, all of those tools available. Just on the coaching front quickly, this feels like a real opportunity for the Vancouver Canucks here. My understanding is an offer was made to Mike Yeo. He decided that he didn't like the offer and wanted to explore his options, and they have parted ways. Sounds a lot like what happened down in Abbotsford with Jeremy Colleton. there are very few NHL benches now that don't have a head coach and an assistant coach with head coaching experience. Like that's just kind of a baseline when you look around the National Hockey League. And I think this is an opportunity. There are so many NHL head coaches that are out of work. They still want to be head coaches, I'm sure, but not all of them are going to be, and not all of them were cut out to be. Ultimately, maybe they got an opportunity somewhere. Look at a Travis Green, had to take a step back. The second job wasn't there for him, took an assistant's job in Jersey, and it led to a head coaching opportunity. I think that Rick Tocchet, and if the Canucks are patient here, now they may have their eyes on somebody, but you've got the reigning coach of the year. You've got a guy who is highly collaborative in talking. Like, how many times did he praise the work of his assistants? How many times did we hear him after a morning skate or at after a game talk about a video session or a meeting that the assistants had not just participated in, but led? How many times did we see the assistants at the whiteboard at practice? Like, Rick Tocchet is not all about Rick Tocchet. Like, he really is a collaborative guy. And you've got this hockey club that just won the division. You've got all these component parts. If they're looking to bring in a power play specialist, like, why wouldn't you want to work with JT Miller and Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson if he can get his game back? So I think it's a real opportunity. I hope that the Canucks don't go cheap here. And I don't know the reasons for Colleton and Yeo ultimately.
If
there was some sort of monetary aspect to it, I see an opportunity for the Canucks to go and get somebody with head coaching experience as an assistant coach, but you probably have to pay more than your standard assistant coach rate. So I'm fascinated to see where this takes the Vancouver Canucks here, if they have their eye on somebody or if they're willing to step back and sort of play the field and see if the best candidate available is the guy that ultimately they can land for that job.
Jeff, good stuff as always. Go recover. We will chat with you next week.
All right, guys. Thanks.
There he is, Jeff Patterson. Short and sweet today. Brought to you by Wendy's because it's the mega preview. Off-season mega preview. I got to remember that. I just want to say mega preview.
Mega. Sorry, I'm just laughing because there was a random audio file that played, but then the private chat of it says, because Grady on the studio computer, I don't know why the names automatically default sometimes. It says David Quadrelli in our private chat, sorry, lol. And then Quads is actually over here. It says it's okay, lol. But it shows up as like David Quadrelli saying sorry. And then Quads responding it's okay. It looks like he's having a conversation with himself, apologizing to himself. So I just had it
wasn't me. The chat's already accusing me of watching TikTok at work. That's not it. That's not it. I promise that's not it. Okay. Yeah. Our thanks again to Jeff Patterson for joining us. Now, let's get into our off-season. Grady, clip Jeff saying mega preview. That's something I just want to have on hand for when we do our season.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Just Jeff doing the mega preview. Get that clipped. Like, I just want that, just a button. If we can have a mega preview Jeff button, that'd be great. So that's my ask. That's my off-season ask. But something you might be asking for in the off-season, some Four Winds Brewing. More specifically, the Four Winds IPA, a bitter beer for the sweetest coast. This classic IPA was made for folks who want a hoppy beer, hitting major keynotes of citrus and flower while finishing with a mellow hoppy flourish. This is an IPA for IPA lovers. Available at liquor stores across the province or for home delivery through the online shop at fourwindsbrewing.ca. The off-season mega preview is brought to you by Four Winds Brewing, so go check them out on River Road in Delta. And hey, Light the Lamp, hopefully coming back next season. Light the Lamp was a lot of fun. I miss not being able to say who I think the first goal scorer is, but I digress.
Yeah,
I digress. Let's get into it. Let's get into the offseason mega preview brought to you by our friends over at Four Winds Brewing. Harmon, we planned this a lot. Starting with cap space, we're going to move our way down into what free agents they have, what key decisions they have heading into the offseason, but we're not going to dive in on this is what they should do. We're not going to do a lot of problem solving today. A lot of it's just going to be here's everything that's facing this team this offseason. And hey, in the coming days, the coming weeks, we're still doing 3 shows a week into the offseason, folks. We're going to be answering these questions as the season progresses. And hey, we're only a month away from free agency.
Absolutely. Now, before we dive into the cap situation and we're going to be talking about roster needs, I think big picture philosophy wise, and I know a lot of people in the market have been echoing the sentiment, it's not all about this idea of bringing your pending UFAs back, right? You don't want to just run back the same team.
Yep.
You're looking to actually improve. So the perspective you want to have going into this offseason is take a sober look at your cap space, your roster needs. We've got X amount of money. We have these potential trade chips if we want to dip our toes into the trade market. What's the best, most efficient way to allocate those dollars in our potential trade assets? That's the mentality you want to have. And when we discuss needs on today's show, we're talking about a roadmap for actually upgrading, right? We're going to be listing a lot of needs. You're not going to be able to fill necessarily every one of them. This is more of like a perfect world in terms of what actually gets you to being a cup contender. Plus, remember, you don't need to solve all of your needs in the offseason. You always have in-season trade deadline, as the Canucks did last year when they went out.
Zadorov in November. Yeah.
Lindholm. But we want to really encapsulate where they are cap-wise, forward lineup, D, goaltending, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. How much cap space do the Canucks have this offseason?
Yeah, so cap friendly says nearly 24 million, but you have to account for
Tucker Pullman at LTIR.
And they, as of last night, had Nikita Tolopilo's contract on the NHL roster page, which isn't going to be the case. So I've got them at $27.2 million in cap space with 10 forward signed, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie. You can carve out some extra flexibility if you find a way to maybe retain a little bit and ship out Ilya Mikheyev. I'm sure we'll touch on that later. But that's basically the main premise of the cap situation, and then we can maybe start with the forward lineup and diving into the state of it, what they may be targeting.
The Canucks need a fourth line, it looks like, when I look at this. When I look at what we have written down here, you've got Höglander, Patterson, and then a big spot. The topic of today's poll question, brought to you by Mr. Lube, is going to be asking fans what they think the Canucks' number one priority should be this offseason. And as you'll see later, overwhelming majority say it's to find a winger for Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, because you basically got your pairs set. I think when you look at your top 3 lines, you've got Miller and Besser together, Höglander and Pettersson. I also would advise the Canucks as they, I'm sorry, that makes me seem quite, I'm advising the Canucks. No, not from that perspective, but how I would approach it if I was in their shoes is I would really consider shifting Suter to 3C, because looking at the free agent market last night for centermen, I think there's only 4 centermen somewhere in that range who had more than 30 points last season. It is a very shallow pool. I think you'll find a much easier time if you shift Suter to third line center, have him play with Garland, and then you just go out and get a winger. I think wingers are a lot easier to find at bargain rates than it is going to be to find a centerman. Plus, remember that Suter was originally signed to be a centerman anyway. That's what he was in Detroit. He before Bluger got the opportunity to play with Joshua Garland. Remember that Suter, Joshua Garland was a terrific line, had unbelievable underlying numbers for several games, but then Suter got hurt, right? So I'm confident that he can do it. You've got your 3 pairs, Miller, Besser, Höglander, Pettersson, Suter, Garland. So from there, I'm looking at a star winger to play with Elias Pettersson, because and for the offseason as a whole, that's my biggest need, because Canucks only had 1 winger score 50 points this year.
Yes.
You look at the conference finalists, the Stars had 5, right? Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, Jamie Benn, Mason Marchment, Tyler Seguin. Rangers had 3, Panarin, Kreider, Lafreniere. Panthers had 3, Reinhart, Kachuk, Verhaeghe. And Oilers only had 2 in Hyman and Nugent Hopkins. But you get more leeway there when you have McDavid and Draisaitl. Yeah. Plus, the one winger that the Canucks did have, Brock Besser, who eclipsed that mark. We're talking about a player that stayed healthy and had a career best season. Like Besser may not repeat the type of year that he had last season.
And that's not a knock on Besser. Like, you're not knocking Besser when you say that.
100%. It's just he may not score 40 goals next year. That's not
a hot take.
Like a hot take, right? So absolutely, in terms of the one big piece you target, them having cap flexibility and where do you splurge? Where do you maybe pay the premium, either in a trade in the assets that you give up, and or the contract that you're willing to sign? Not that you want to overpay guys, but you're willing to dish out a big contract for a guy, to me, it's for a legit star winger so that Pedersen has a running mate to play with.
Conversation. It's not anyone else yet, but we'll read from the chat. Conversation in the chat. I disagree with Suter to 3C. He's such great value on the wing with Miller and Besser. So my response to that would be, that's a great plan B, but don't go into the season saying, okay, we have to go find a 3C for the reasons you just listed, and saying, but we're going to make sure Pius Suter is in our top 6. Like, it's a great plan B. It's great depth if you need to do it, but it's more of a break glass in case of emergency. It's not so much a plan that I'm looking at in the offseason and saying, look how great this trio is together. We don't need to do anything except go get a 3C.
I also just worry that who are you going to find then? Right? Because
yeah, exactly. Like, looking at the free agent, it's bleak. It's bleak.
We're gonna touch on free agents further in further episodes and go deeper on Lindholm, but considering that you need a winger for Patterson to play with, I don't think you can afford to pay $7 million plus for
a guy who didn't fit with Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, so you're not paying that much for a third line center. So then you go down the list and it's like you've got UFA centers this year: Wenberg, Roslovic, who's really more of a winger now. Domi, who isn't like, he can play 3C, but he's an offensively oriented type. I don't think he'd be a fit here. Chandler Stevenson, and then Sean Monahan, Teddy Bluger. After that, you get into like Tyson Jost, Travis Boyd. Like, it is so thin.
Hey, reunite with Travis Boyd. You remember he had a cup of coffee with the Canucks?
Yeah, he's not a 3C.
No, you're absolutely right. You're illustrating.
Like, Wenberg is the only player that I look at and go, oh, he'd be a decent 3C, or Stevenson, but he's gonna get paid probably closer to top 6 money.
Yeah.
You just don't have the options.
No, you don't. And that's what it comes down to. So I like where you're going with this. Okay, moving down the lineup. You want to look at defense now?
We'll also point out, after the star winger for Patterson, you're going to need a third line winger, in whether it's Joshua, like re-signing him, or
finding the next Dakota Joshua.
Yeah. And I know that, like, in an ideal world too, it'd be great to add an additional top 9 forward at a bargain bin type price, because again, if you're shifting Suter to center, then you ideally want another guy so that you're not leaning on Mikheyev in a top 9 role heading into October. And then you also have to decide, like, yeah, you could technically get away with Nils Lamont as your 4th line center, but if you're going to possibly lose Lindholm, I think re-signing Bluger, especially for the penalty kill, should be something that you really consider.
That was a good fit. Team liked him. Player liked the team. Feels like a good fit. That feels like one of the no-brainers when we look at UFAs that you might have to sign at their market value. I think you're comfortable with Teddy Bluger at what he'd be making.
You just hope that the lack of UFA centers doesn't make somebody
inflate the
overpay
price.
for
That's
him.
the thing that I keep thinking about, is when you list those centers, I'm starting to think, okay, well, if Alex Wenberg is near the top of that, and Chandler Stevenson obviously as well, how much are those guys going to get? Like, that's the question that immediately comes to my mind when we say, yeah, it's trash. No offense to Travis Boyd and Tyson Jost, but it's trash. And then it's this. The this and that looks like they're going to get they're going to be the ones that get their price way inflated. So we'll see how it all shakes down on July 1. But did you have anything else on the forwards that you wanted to get to specifically? Because I think now we have to naturally move to the needs on the blue line.
Yeah, let's do that.
So 3 defensemen signed right now. You've got Quinn Hughes, you've got Carson Soucy, you've got Noah Juleson. You need 2 top 4 right defense when we read that out. Hronek could be one, and then ideally a Myers contract. What are you thinking there?
Well, this is where it gets fascinating, because if the Canucks actually want to level up, you should be trying to aim higher than Myers in a second pair role. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back as like a number 5 defenseman to start on the third pair, especially because, okay, if you run into injuries, he can step up and play in a top 4 role. But if we're talking about actually upgrading this blue line, look at the depth of Dallas's blue line and how much it helps now that they have another huge 2-way minute muncher in Chris Tanev, right? Look at Florida's blue line right now, where they have Forsling, Ekblad, and Montour as high-end blue liners. I like Soucy as sort of like your number 4 on that second pair on a matchup pair. But when you have Soucy and Myers together in the playoffs, I thought they struggled to break the puck out, and I don't think that's necessarily something that you're I'm not going to criticize Susie and Myers for being unable to do that. I think it's more that if you could give Susie a partner who can hold that role a little bit better, that would be ideal, because I'm looking at the numbers right now. At 5-on-5, the Canucks were outshot 178 to 98, basically outshot by a 2-to-1 ratio without Quinn Hughes on the ice. So that's part of when we discuss the Canucks having difficulty manufacturing offense. Part of it starts with, okay, your blue line had trouble breaking it out whenever Quinn Hughes was not on the ice. So that's where, yes, you need 2 top 4 right-handed defensemen. Hronek could be one of them. After that, yeah, you could technically get away with Myers, maybe, right? Because look, maybe the other needs up front are so important you don't have the cap space, but that's a spot that I'm looking at and going, in a perfect world, you would find an upgrade on Myers.
Yeah, in a perfect world. Is that going to be the Canucks world? We'll find out. When we keep talking,
like on this idea of finding an upgrade for Myers, and again, that doesn't mean discard Myers. That I would love to bring him back at the right price in a third pair role.
That's all we're talking about. Is just you're adding to your depth, and you're adding to your depth in front of Myers. And I think that's where one of the areas, of course, where the last management regime really struggled. We're like, why do we need more? Like, we have this guy right here, and then an injury hits, and it's like, oh my gosh, well, injuries. So of course we're not going to compete this year. Good teams go overcome that.
That's also where when people discuss the free agent market, Matt Roy, Chris Tanev, players like that, they're not Phil Hronek replacements. They're Tyler Myers upgrades. You know what I mean? Because they're going to offer more of a defensive style, being able to play in a matchup shutdown role. That's how Tocchet deployed that second pair, was to play matchup minutes. So you're not replacing Hronek's offensive skill set and what he means to the blue line by bringing in a Matt Roy or a Tanev. I love those players, but you have to be cognizant and know what skill set a player is bringing, because you would be losing a lot of offense from the back end if you move on from Hronek, and you'd have to bring in my opinion, you'd need to bring another like legit offensive defenseman. It can't just be Hughes as your only D-man with offensive pop.
No, I like that thought process, that it's not a Philip Hronek replacement. It's an upgrade on the guy that you need to play shutdown minutes. This is interesting, and it's interesting when we get to the key decisions, when we look at those, and how Philip Hronek is obviously a very, very key decision for this management regime to navigate this offseason. I think we could do an entire episode on just the blue line.
We could even just do an entire episode on Philip Hronek.
Yeah,
and we I'm
probably
sure we'll explore it much deeper, because so many talking points, so many potential narratives, pros, cons. There's a ton to unpack that we won't have time to touch on today.
Okay. Anything else when it comes to the defense? Because I was looking at Harm. We talked about Brendan Dillon on Monday's episode. We talked about Brendan Dillon. A left side of Quinn Hughes, Carson Soucy, and Brendan Dillon sounds fantastic, and it upgrades your blue line.
Yes, that's where the only thing you have to be careful about is if you go down that route of, let's say you're able to bring Hronek back hypothetically, and you're able to find another top 4 right shot defenseman, then on that third pair, you can basically only pick one guy in terms of like a Brendan Dillon or a Tyler Myers to be your number 5 defenseman, where you're paying a guy $2.5, $3 million, because you can't have a $6 million third pair.
No.
So
you need
like, or like the only way you'd have both Myers and Dillon is if you're saying, well, we're going to have Myers in that second pair role to start, and maybe we make a deadline ad.
I like that. I think that's the move. Because first of all, draft picks don't matter. Owner Quads tells you that every time. Trade them every year. You can trade them as much as you want. Remember, I texted the GM and he said, yeah, there's no limit on how much you can trade. I'll tell you, anyways, I'm not going to get into it. But for those that don't remember, yes, I had the conversation about how far in advance can you trade draft picks. And they said, well, technically there's no rules against like 2040 picks, but nobody would take them. So on Cap Friendly, they only list every 3 years, but Canucks still have all their 2027 picks. Get those out of here. I'm getting off topic.
Yeah, it will be interesting because not that you're going to go and trade your 2026 and 2027 picks, but
you should.
When we're talking about, let's say, going out and targeting a star level winger for Paterson, like I'm absolutely fine giving up future assets. That's actually worth it, especially if it's a guy that you have confidence can be part of your core for a while. That's where I'm like, okay, let's pony up. I'm willing to pay a price.
So Martin Necas, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, for sure. There are going to be others too.
Jake Gensel. Well, I guess he's a free agent, but anyways. Okay. Yeah, this is interesting. Chat's talking about the defense. They're talking about Jalen Chatfield coming in. And if you're starting with Myers, if we're doing, let's go down this road quickly, because I know we have a lot to get to on the mega preview. If we're going down this road where you say, okay, it's not ideal, but we're going to make Myers the guy in the top 4 and we need to go get someone cheaper. Like I think Juleson, Chatfield, third pair, kind of rotation. And Chatfield's better. Like Chatfield's not the same guy he was, obviously, when he left here. And you think he would flourish in this defensive environment, right? I'm on board with that. I'm on board with the little Jalen Chatfield reunion.
Yeah, it depends on the cost, right? Yeah. As it does with everybody. Feel like an idiot for saying that, but yeah, if Chatfield is going to cost you, let's say, $1.5 million, yeah, I'll take him as the number 60 man. But if it's anything more than that, if it's inching closer to $2 million territories, then
you don't pay that to bottom pairing defensemen. You just don't. Good teams don't do that.
Unless it's Brandon a legit Dillon. Number 5 that you're like, okay, this guy is capable of playing top 4 in a pinch.
It's like you said, like Brendan Dillon's a 4-5. He's not a 5-6, exactly. Right? So
same with Myers. He's a 4-5.
Yeah. And hey, same with Carson Soucy. He was a 4-5. Yeah. Now, like last season, he played like a 3-4, and obviously the Canucks are hoping he can continue to do that. But yeah, Carson Soucy provides you a lot of stability on that back end.
You've got dollars there. It's going to be so fascinating how they allocate it. Like, do they distribute it? Let's just for hypothetical purposes say they keep Pronik. After that, are they going to distribute it relatively evenly cap wise, which is sort of what they did last year, right? Is Cole, Zadorov's, and of course Soucy when they originally brought him in, all in and around $3 to $3.75 million, or would they say, okay, Hronik's back, let's find another like high-end top 4 defenseman, we're willing to pay this guy $5-6 million, and then maybe you go cheaper in constructing the rest of your blue line. You've got options and flexibility there.
Yeah. Okay, goaltending, or do you have anything else on defense?
Let's go goaltending. Yeah,
let's go goaltending. We were talking about this before because it seems like a foregone conclusion that Artur Shelovs is going to come in and be the backup for the Canucks next season. He had a great playoff, of course, and of course the organization is very high on Shelovs, has been for a while. But you and I were briefly discussing the need to go get a number 3 goalie or another capable backup.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things to keep in mind with respect to goaltending. Number one is Demko probably needs a cap on his starts, right? You can't rely on him as a workhorse starter. Keeping him healthy and fresh for the playoffs has to be a massive priority, right? So that means you're the number of non-Demko starts in the regular season next season is probably going up.
Yep.
Now, great. That means more action for Shelovs. But also the other perspective to think about it is, now that we've seen Demko get hurt multiple times, well, you don't want to be in a position where Shelovs is left to dry if he's the only goalie with NHL experience, if Demko's out for another, like, let's say 6 to 8 weeks in the regular season.
Yep.
Right? You want to have, whether it's a veteran backup or a number 3 in the AHL that has NHL experience, like a Louis Domingue type, somebody that's experienced and you'd feel comfortable going to like, the question is, who's next after Shelovs in the depth chart? And it can't be Tolopilo, right?
Well, it is Tolopilo.
Especially because Shelovs is waiver exempt for next season.
Yeah.
So like you have creativity and flexibility in being able to shuttle him up and down. And so Kochetkov in Carolina is a perfect example of a guy that yo-yoed in Carolina for quite a while, playing NHL, playing AHL. Carolina had 3 goalies that they were using. It protects you make sure that you have extra insurance in case of emergency. So that's the decision to make. Is well, also on Shelov's too. How much do you want to commit to him after his playoff run?
Yeah,
because if you're confident that, hey, this guy's got a bright NHL future, you could give him the Kochetkov type deal where Kochetkov got $2 million cap hit times 4 years, with the idea being, okay, maybe you're paying a bit of a premium in year 1 and 2, but down the road, years 3 and 4, if he really blossoms
as a starter,
like Kochetkov, like that's going to be such a bargain deal. Do the Canucks want to go down that road with Shelov's, or do they want cap savings for next season, to which, you know, you're obviously 1 or 2 year show me deal, cheaper cap hit. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do with Shelov's as an RFA, and what they do in terms of, are they signing a guy to be the backup for Demko, or are they signing a guy to be the number 3 behind Shelov's?
Yeah, the guy. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not Zach Sawchenko, but somebody else. Get somebody else as well. And that's no disrespect to Nikita Tolopilo. It's just that you want depth at all positions, and you certainly want it at goaltending, especially with what you're talking about. And hey, Owner Quad said it a couple episodes ago, like, I'd be capping Demko at 45 starts next year. That's just the reality of it. That's what you got to do. That's the plan. You want Demko to play 60 games, but you want those to come in the playoffs, right? That's a lot of games for a goaltender to play. And again, one with Demko's injury history, you need to be limiting those starts. Okay. NHL level free agents. Just quickly looking at the list, because it's good to preview this, and we've played it a couple times on the screen, but let's pull it back up. I'll talk about it quickly for the podcast listeners. There it is. Unrestricted free agents. You've got Dakota Joshua, Sam Lafferty, Tyler Myers, Ian Cole, Nikita Zadorov, Mark Friedman, Teddy Bluger, Elias Lindholm, Casey DeSmith. What are these numbers next to their names? I hope Jacob's watching this and can explain it. Oh, it's their ages.
Oh, nice.
Took me a second. I was like, I don't think Jacob knows any of these guys' jersey numbers. Restricted free agents, Artur Shelov's and Philip Hronek. Again, we're going to spend an entire episode talking about Philip Hronek. But Harman, I will ask you the same question that I asked J-Pat. When you look at this list of unrestricted free agents, which one of them would you sign at their true market value and what they're getting? I'll tell you market values too. I'll tell you what I think. Okay. Joshua, open market. I mean, the report came from Dollywall today. J-Pat referenced it. Dollywall is reporting that Joshua's camp is more in the 3 million range and the Canucks are more in the low 2s range. I agree wholeheartedly with J-Pat. This is just negotiating through the media. There's nothing crazy happening here right now. It's not like, oh, kiss goodbye to Dakota Joshua or anything like that. I think Dakota Joshua's true market value is probably going to end up being 3 years by $3 million. That's Joshua. Okay. Don't need to really do Lafferty. Myers, let's say what, 2 by 3? Is that fair market value for Tyler Myers? 3 by 3, maybe.
All right. What's the cap and what's the years in that?
Well, 2 years. 2 years, 3 million.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that fair, or is 3 by 3 more true market value? Okay. 2 by 3 for Tyler Myers.
That's a team friendly number for sure. But I think they're like, if any player on this list might take a team friendly deal, it's Myers.
Yeah. Then you've got Nikita Zadorov, whose market value, what, 5 years, 6 million?
Yeah, that's
so I think we're both turning away from Nikita Zadorov. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Okay. So at market value, and obviously not Elias Lindholm. We've already talked about Elias Lindholm. We're not taking Elias Lindholm at his market value. I look at Teddy Bluger and I look at Dakota Joshua as the guys who stand out on this list. And hell, I might even have time for 35-year-old Ian Cole at like 1 year, $775,000.
Well, I mean, he's not signing that now.
What do you think he's taking?
He's going to be looking for more than that.
Yeah, but what's he getting on the open market?
I don't know. Maybe like the only way it would work is if he tests the market on July 1st, doesn't get the offers that he's looking for, and you circle back a few days later and sign him for, you're not getting him at league minimum, man.
1 million?
1.5.
Okay.
Like that's, and
I don't think I do 1.5.
Well, I could easily see him getting 2 or 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's projected over 2 on
FP. Okay, stay away then. Okay, forget him. Joshua, Bluger. Those are the two guys I looked at.
Yeah, I think Bluger makes a lot of sense. Again, barring him getting overpaid, but because of his impact on the PK, if you're losing Elias Lindholm potentially, then you want to maintain depth down the middle. I love the versatility of, or also the insurance that if a centerman gets hurt, you're pushing guys up the lineup. I know that Bluger can hang as a third line center, as opposed to if you have Nils Amon in that role. I don't have any trust in Nils Amon playing with Connor Garland. Like, you're tanking your third line at that point. No offense, Nils Amon.
Yeah.
But that matters a lot to me. I also think internally the Canucks front office value that a lot. They put a ton of stock into contending teams have high-end fourth-line centers. And that doesn't mean you pay through the roof for it, but that's a really important part of the roster that they themselves internally value. So I think at market price, Bluger makes a lot of sense. Joshua, I'm in the 50-50 range. Like, 3x3 is probably might be palatable. I'd definitely consider it. But anything more than that, which I think there's a chance he could get more than 3x3 in free agency. And at that point, it's a SIA.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have to think about Joshua more, especially because the tough part about it is whether it's Joshua, whether it's Myers, you have cap space, but for example, let's say with your forward lineup, let's say you want to make a run at a Jake Gensel and that guy costs $9 million. Well, then all of a sudden you may not be able to afford to pay Joshua $3 million. But if you're able to solve, but if instead you, let's say, trade for Ehlers, and now that Pedersen winger is only $6 million, well, now you have the money for Joshua. You get what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's not just, do I like this player at this price in a vacuum? It's my higher priority needs, like a top six winger, like what I'm going to do with Hronek, what I'm going to do on the back end. Like, all of these decisions are connected.
It's a domino effect.
Exactly. So that's why it's hard to, in a vacuum, sometimes with a player like Joshua. That's why I'm a 50-50 on Joshua.
Fair enough.
Right now.
Okay. I had someone in the chat who said it. Yeah, K-Town Chef. He said, that's way too much for Nikita Zadorov. 5 years, $6 million.
Yeah, I'm not signing that.
That's the contract that Tyler Myers got from the Canucks in 2018. The cap has gone up since then.
Well, and Irf reported that the team, Milstein's camp rejected 4.5 times 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. So I understand it's too much, but I'm telling you, that's Nikita Zadorov's market value. Like,
that's what he's going into free agency. Like, that's his price.
Sure.
It might come down.
Yeah.
But that's as of now.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's your walk away number? Like, if it's anything more than this, you are out.
Well, 5x5 is the only thing that I sit and think about. Anything above it, I walk away.
Something similar to what Irf said the Canucks already offered, right? Like, I'd be fine with 4.5 times 4, 4.5 times 5.
Great work, Patrick Alvin.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, that's
props to you, man. Great offer.
And that's how negotiations work, right? Like, you start with a low ball and then you find common ground. Everyone's like, oh, this is disrespectful. No, that's kind of how it goes.
It's not even, like, let's be honest, he's a 4-5 defenseman. That's not disrespectful.
Yeah. Well,
that's not disrespectful.
People got to remember.
It's below market value, but
yeah,
it's a lot of cash.
Yeah, people got to remember the whole picture and not just what happened in the postseason.
But before the playoffs, we didn't, with any level of confidence, know if he was a top 4 defenseman.
No,
Like,
absolutely.
And now we want to pay this guy north of $5 million.
Exactly.
It's a cap hit for me, right? He's on the younger side,
Yeah.
and so term I'm not as much worried about, as I just don't think you should be paying a number 4 or 5 defenseman $5 to $6 million per year.
Absolutely. Yeah. No disagreement. Like, great offer, Patrick Alvin. I love that we're saying that. It's like, yeah, that's a great offer.
And this is where I have so much more confidence in this management regime to, like, have the right walkaway points.
Yes.
And not get attached to guys.
Tanner Pearson.
This whole idea of loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, can you imagine if Zadorov had this run and Jim Benning was
No.
He'd be like, here's the blank check, Dan.
Yeah.
6 times 6. Here you go. The Louis special.
Our internal cap. No, I'm not gonna do it. No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not doing a Jim Benning impression. I'm not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. But yeah, we can all imagine what would happen if Jim Benning were still in charge and Nikita Zadorov had that kind of playoffs.
And just to illustrate,
you have to pay a premium for playoff performers. Okay, sorry, go on.
That was really good. I wanted to walk through a hypothetical just to illustrate, because when we say, for example, like around $27 million in cap space, I think it's at first glance, like we've also walked through a ton of needs. It's hard to process, okay, like how many of those needs can they fit? Like, are they screwed? Are they in a good position? Is that a lot of money relative to their roster needs? I just wanted to walk through like a hypothetical scenario of how you might allocate those dollars, not trying to predict or anything, but just to illustrate what it could look like, what boxes you would check, what maybe you'd go into the season having question marks around, knowing, of course, that there's like a million different different combinations of how you could actually deploy this cap space. So let's say, and again, I'm not even thinking of specific targets in my mind when I say this, just from a lineup slot perspective. Sure. Let's say you allocate $7 million for top line caliber winger for Patterson, whether that's free agency or the trade market. Hronek, we don't want to. I think we're in agreement that we don't want to sign him to a long-term deal that starts with $8 million, but there are other avenues that you could go down. Like there's also, you could do a 1-year deal just to kick the can down the road. If
take him to free agency,
if you think his trade value is restrained because every team knows that he wants the bag. Anyway, let's pencil him in for $7 million, hypothetically, just for the purposes of this exercise. Then let's say you really want to upgrade your back end and you say, let's go after a Matt Roy or Chris Tanev type, like another top 4 caliber defenseman, $5.5 million there. We want to bring Blueger back, $2 million there. Let's go cheap on the rest of the top line because we've gone expensive on higher of the lineup pieces. So $1 million third line winger, an $800K bargain depth forward, right? So you can't maybe afford an additional top 9 guy yet.
Yep.
And then because you went out and made a splashy top 4 acquisition, you go $1.25 million for depth defenseman, $1 million for an additional depth defenseman. You're filling out the third pair cheap, with the idea that you upgraded at the deadline. And then let's say $1.5 million allocated for whether Chilovs or another backup. That would all fit cap space wise. Yes. It would cost you around $27 million. And essentially what you would have accomplished is you found a star caliber winger for Patterson, or at least like a first line caliber one. You've got a $5 million range to spend on top 4 upgrade after you potentially sign Hronek to like a 1-year deal or an ARB, or you just take the arbitration award. You've kept Blueger as your 4th line center. And now that would leave you with, okay, your bottom pair probably looks a little thin at that point. But of course, maybe in that scenario, instead of splashy additional top 4, you even it out and sign more of the 4-5 types, bring Myers back. And anyway, in this scenario, you probably still need at the deadline another 4-5 type defenseman, an additional maybe third line winger, which is totally doable.
Yep.
It's actually, the cap math isn't terrible. The challenge, of course, is that we're assuming those dollars are perfectly allocated, right? Like that every player hits, that the $7 million winger is actually the perfect fit for Patterson, that the $1 million bargain third line winger is actually able to be the next Dakota Joshua, that the depth signings that you make on the back end work out, that the top 4 defenseman that you go out and sign is actually top 4 defenseman. And I think the overall big picture takeaway when I look at cap space, roster needs, is they've got the cap flexibility to make moves happen. They can go big game hunting. They can chase a star, especially up front. But you have so many needs that you can't afford to overpay players. And you need to, if you want to improve, basically hit on every bet. The Canucks front office did that last year on a smaller scale, right? Like think about free agency last year. With just under $10 million, they got Carson Soucy, shut down second pair defenseman, Teddy Blueger, 3rd, 4th line center, Ian Cole to stabilize your bottom 4, and Pia Suter to play all over your top 9. Like that is freaking incredible for just under $10 million. Doing it again is going to be a massive challenge, especially because now you've got to make bigger swing bets too. But that's kind of the landscape is, again, they've got flexibility. They can make moves happen, but given the number of needs, they just can't afford to miss, especially with their bigger cap space splurges.
Absolutely. Do you want to get to our poll question? Because that's the big one. And the one that we didn't talk about, the key decisions as we look at them. Sorry, Grady, I juked you out there. Key decisions. Who should replace Mike Yeo as PK coach? Mike Yeo has left the Vancouver Canucks. And a power play coach. Those are other decisions. We don't need to dive into them. Just something.
Hronek, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got a lot of key decisions here. But let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by Mr. Lube. Where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, pull up the poll question. Our poll question is brought to you by Mr. Lube. Need a tire change or tire service? Mr. Lube provides no appointment tire service and sales. Drop by anytime for tire rotation, tire repair, and balancing. Servicing all makes and models, including electric vehicles. Find them at one of their 16 locations in the Lower Mainland. To find one near you, go to mrlube.com. Okay, our poll question today in the theme of the mega preview, the offseason mega preview. What should be the Canucks' biggest priority this offseason? Filling their center depth, finding a winger for EP40, smart ads on defense, and other. Reply below. Harmon, overwhelmingly 79.6% of people say find a winger for Elias Pettersson. 18% say smart ads on defense, and 1.7% say filling center depth.
No surprise there. With this team right now, clearly there's a lot of confidence in the defensive structure, in how they limit high danger scoring chances, in the goaltending, especially when Thatcher Demko is healthy. The question mark is going to be, can they score enough, right? And this is where, even in the first round against Nashville, only 13 goals in 6 games. Game 6 and 7 against the Oilers with a chance to advance to the conference final, only 3 goals, right? From the All-Star break till the end of the regular season, finished 24th in goals scored. Yes, for the regular season as a whole, they finished top 10 in goals scored, but they were on a massive PDO bender in the first half of the season. They had bottom 6 players shooting 20%. They had a number of career years offensively from players. And this is the other thing to keep in mind is, in even the players that you're returning, they may not have as productive seasons as they just came off of, right? Miller had 100 plus points for the first time. Bass has scored 40 goals. Höglander scored 24 goals, nearly all of which were at even strength. Number of guys had careers, and this is where internally you're going to need Pedersen to play closer to the peak of his potential. Mikheyev, if he's back, needs to bounce back. But externally, you need to find more offensive pop, more creativity, more dynamic skill.
So no disagreement there with the fans and the listeners on the poll question.
I thought maybe center depth would get.
I thought this would get more too.
Just
I agree with you.
Lindholm and Bluger are both UFAs, and we saw them wanting to be stronger down the middle. And subtracting those two definitely leaves a hole in the lineup, but it's the biggest priority, it's one singular thing.
They're all needs.
Yes.
And all of them need to be checked.
But what's your biggest priority?
Exactly.
I think, we can agree.
Oh, yeah. Without
finding that winger. Okay, let's do it. We did it on Monday, and we came very close. We finished second. We tied for second with a bunch of people. What do we get? 6 or 7? 6. We got 6 right in the Daily Faceoff Playoff Parlay Challenge. And folks, if you didn't know, daily winners snag the gift cards. It's a $25 Amazon gift card or a $40 Nation Gear gift card. And the weekly winner pockets some cash, or either that or there's like an Amazon gift card as well. There's a $250 Amazon gift card that we saw. Harmon and I are taking this very seriously, this Daily Faceoff Playoff Parlay Challenge. You can go play it yourself over at games.dailyfaceoff.com. And folks, we're going for the gold tonight because we came second place last time with 6 correct ones out of 8 picks. Let's go 8 for 8, Harm. Tonight, Dallas Stars at Edmonton Oilers. We agree the heavily favored, well, not heavily favored, but the favorite Edmonton Oilers are going to win and even up the series tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. Over, under, including overtime. If the Oilers win, I think it's a high scoring game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say over.
Yeah.
First goal going to Dallas or Edmonton. I like Edmonton there.
Yeah.
Okay. Highest scoring period. This is where we screwed up last time. We said third period, which statistically is the most likely outcome, but that didn't happen in that game.
Let's go with that again.
You want to go third period again?
What are you feeling?
I think second period. Hasn't the second period been the high scoring period in every game in this series?
Sure. Let's go with that then.
Okay. Connor McDavid total assists over 1.5 or under 1.5?
We have to take the over.
We have to, right?
To win, yeah.
Well, do we? Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to, because he could have like
Goals?
1 goal, 1 assist, or like 2 goals, 1 assist. But
I say under. I think we
You
should
think
go
so?
under. I think we should go with the under.
all right.
Bold.
Miro Heiskanen total assists over under 1.
Under.
Rupe Hintz total goals under. Zach Hyman total goals. Does Zach Hyman score a goal tonight?
Yeah, you have
Yes.
to go.
Okay, shots on goal between each team. I think 57 was the closest last game. We'll go 58.
Sure, yeah.
What's that game where you go 1 over? And I confirm my picks.
Boom.
Is it Wheel of Fortune? No, it's not Wheel of Fortune. No, Price is Right. You've seen Price is Right.
No.
What? You've never seen Price is
No.
Right? I'm a big game show guy. I love a
That
good
was
game show.
Deal or No Deal.
Oh, Deal or
Wheel
No
of
Deal was good.
Wheel of Fortune.
Is Deal or No Deal Island? I'm very curious what that's all about, but I'm not really into, like, I don't watch TV anymore. I just don't.
I don't either.
Yeah. Okay, anyways, let's get to a quick word from the BC government, and then on the other side, we'll get to a quick anyone else. Time now for a word from helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. We've all heard of the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis, but did you know that it affects men disproportionately? Last year, 78% of people dying here in BC were men, and the majority were 30 to 59 years old. It's not easy to struggle with addiction, and the stigma around it can make it harder for people to reach out for help. But there is help and support available. Every journey is different, and the thing that helps might not be the same for everyone. So when someone does reach out, be compassionate and have open, non-judgmental conversations. We here at Canucks Conversation want to be part of the solution. So if you or someone you care about is struggling, you can find supports and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. You can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on the Help Starts Here website. Or go to CanadiansBaseball.com. I've got an anyone else. This video seems to be going pretty viral right now. Can we watch the video? Do you have it for us? Can we see it?
Yes, I do.
And the context. Can you give the listeners the context? Because I haven't watched it or anything.
Well, there's a guy somewhere in Ann Arbor, actually, suspended.
Hometown of Ian Cole. Sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
Suspended without a license. He was caught. He in court, essentially going to, I guess, doing a Zoom meeting in court. So the judge, calls him in, and well, let's just play the video here.
Public Defender Natalie for Mr. Harris, who should be present in Zoom.
Mr. Harris, are you driving?
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Hey. You stationary?
I'm pulling in right now at this second. Yes, I am.
All right. What are we doing?
Your Honor, we are respectfully requesting an adjournment in this matter, up possibly 24 weeks if the court would allow.
So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended,
That is correct, Your Honor.
and he was just driving, and he didn't have a license.
That is with the charges, Your Honor, yes.
No, I'm looking at his
Yes.
record. He doesn't have a license. He's suspended and he's just driving.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, that's enough, right? That's it. Is there anything else?
Oh,
I don't even know why he would do that. So defendant's bond is revoked in this matter. Defendant has turned himself into the Washington County Jail by 6 p.m. today. Failure to turn himself in will result in a bench warrant with no bond.
Oh,
It's
it's
not
not.
like deep side.
Oh.
My god! As if
You're going to court and your license is suspended. You're going to court because of that, and you're driving on Zoom.
what got me was towards the end when the judge was trying to clarify that. Hold on, this guy's a suspended license and like doesn't have a license right now. Is suspended and is still driving. And the lawyer or whoever it is goes, "That is correct, Your Honor."
Oh man.
His facial reaction is just jaw drops.
The realization. Okay. Yeah, we're good. We got audio back. This is funny.
Did
Rajcraft.
we not?
Yeah, just there when I was doing the anyone else read. So folks, doubleheader at the Nat. Make sure you get out all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. But people said there was no audio. So
Oh, it's because it muted when we played that.
Rajcraft said
Right.
never heard quad sound so good. Okay. Is there anything else in the chat? I mean, people really enjoyed that video. We don't usually do that, but that was really, really funny, and I wanted to make sure we got that. Conversation. The worst thing this management group has done is not give up whatever the Rangers were asking for in return for Alexis Lafreniere.
But you don't know it. You don't know how
Yeah.
open-minded the Rangers were in the first place.
You don't also know what they were asking for.
Yeah.
Okay, there's nothing else. It's yeah. Oh, here we go. Conversation. Can we talk about how the Canucks should hire Jay Woodcroft to fix the power play? You see Jay Woodcroft's doing the doesn't seem like he's doing much right now. He's doing his like branded ads. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
He did a "Hi, I'm Jay Woodcroft, and this is a product I really like." Like he's doing like product reads.
Wow.
But I think it was like his friend is the owner of the company. I don't know if he is
Mhm.
invested in it or whatever, but it's like I think he might have just been doing his buddy a solid, but it comes across as like, sure, Manscaped, I'll do a read for you guys.
Well, also Edmonton has literally nothing going on besides hockey. That anybody associated with hockey in Edmonton is basically an A-list celebrity.
Oh yeah. That's right. Advertise that in Edmonton. There you go. Okay. Here we go. Oh, I like this. K-Town Chef. Let's close on this and think about it. Would it be possible to have a show where we viewers show our Canucks 2024 builds with cap-friendly screenshots? We could do that. We could set some parameters
Yeah.
and be like, okay, you can't have Chris Tanev at 4 years by $2.5 million. Like I saw, no disrespect. Well, some disrespect as always, but there was this person on Twitter. I don't know their username. I don't know who it was, but they were like, look, it's not that hard. Like I got the Canucks here and they still have 775,000. It's like Jake Gensel 6x6.
Oh my god.
Chris Tanev 4 years at $2.5 million. And it's just like, we're going to have to set some reality checks for everybody. And then maybe we can do something like this.
Yeah, and it can be more of like a fun fantasy type thing, because when you build a lot of these cap friendly rosters, it's obviously a lot easier than executing it in theory, because it's not just the prices, it's whether the players actually want to come to Vancouver.
Yes.
Because especially top level free agents, they're gonna have a lot of options.
Yeah.
But as more of like a fun fantasy land, just thinking about things, shooting around ideas, and learning a little bit along the way. I love that idea.
Oh, it's awesome. Okay, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, and we'll close it out on that. Bet365 is a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. Today, we're keeping it simple, folks. We are taking those Edmonton Oilers because we did it for our DFO parlay game, and we're doing it for our Bet365 bet of the day. Right now, you can get the Oilers to win Game 4 tonight and even up the series at home in the Western Conference Finals at minus 135 odds on the money line. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. We'll close it out there. This was the off-season mega preview episode of Canucks Conversation. There it is, of Canucks Conversation. So, for my co-host Harman Dial and our technical producer Grady Sass, my name is Dave Gugelli. Thank you so much for listening to an episode of the Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.